For podcast articles and more, find us on NewsTalkSTL.com.
Coming up on this week's edition of the J.C. Corcoran podcast for the week of Sunday, October 5th, 2025. Apologies for my voice. I got another steroid shot, and it screws up my vocal cords. I'm going to sound funny for a couple of days. All right, coming up on the podcast, 80 fresh minutes of content. The weekend pickup, including the answer to the question, what do NFL cheerleaders get paid? Then it's comedian Larry Miller with a hilarious story about opening for Frank Sinatra. Then I'll tell you the story about Morgan Fairchild and how I got a lot more than I bargained for. Let's just leave it at that. John Waite of the Babies and what we found him doing when he was supposed to be on stage. Then we're going to take you inside a place that almost nobody will ever get a chance to see, and that is a Saturday Night Live after party, after the show. These things run all night. And then Lorne Michaels, what? He never does interviews. But we got him a couple of years back along with Dennis Miller. Enjoy the podcast, and we'll talk to you Saturday night from 6 until 9 o'clock on 101.9, 94.1, and the News Talk STL app. And then back again on Sunday morning from 7 to 9. See you then.
The J.C. Corcoran Podcast.
All right. Grabbing some coffee. Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Albert Brooks, and I'm real happy to be here. Don't ask me how it happened, why I'm in this town. It's a long story, but anyway, they said, would you come down to the station, take some calls? I said, you got it. So call in, we'll chat, and have some fun. What do I do? Line 1 it is. Let's go. Hello, this is Albert Brooks.
The woman that called in earlier about college.
No, wait.
I'm so sick of that. Save the trees.
What
are you going to build your house out of? Meat?
No, sir. This is Albert Brooks. I don't know what call you're referring to.
What the hell is going on?
Okay, fine. Let's go to line 2 and...
You can hear him talking.
Hello, this is Albert Brooks.
Hey, come over here.
No. Oh, man, put down the phone. No. All right, let's go on. Line 3. Hello. Oh, my, listen. That's interesting. Hello?
I play 11 other instruments.
Very good.
Goodbye.
All right. I think this is line 2 flashing. Hello, you're on the air?
Funny.
Turn your radio down. Hello? Hello?
Just do the best you can.
Hello?
Hello?
Turn your radio down.
Move on. I think this is hello?
Yes, okay.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have had a B-A-double-L. I thank you all very much. I turn the program back over to numero uno. Have a happy, won't you?
And tonight on 5 Plus, make sure to catch the latest episode of Mike Bush's podcast, and there you have it. This episode, he speaks with a longtime radio and TV personality, J.C. Corcoran.
And now, real behind-the-scenes stories and tall tales from back in the day. From a guy who was there for all of it. It's JC's Sunday Showgram on News Talk STL.
I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, okay?
Now, here's JC.
It is our debut episode of JC's Sunday Showgram here on 101.9, 94.1, and the absolutely free News Talk STL app. How you doing? We're going to be here every Sunday morning from 7 to 9, and the good news is if you're sleeping through this right now, well, you're not going to know anything about it because you're asleep. But when you wake up, somebody might tell you that this whole thing is going to pop up in podcast form beginning every Monday morning on the News Talk STL app. I have to explain this about podcasting, and that's one of the things that's going to happen on this show from time to time. I'm going to explain things to you that apparently people don't understand. For example, there are these things called BMI and ASCAP fees, and basically those are the two companies that license music. We don't get to play this music for free. Nobody gets to play music for free. Do you know if you go into your favorite bar or restaurant, those people are paying fees for music to be played. It's not free. And they have dudes that, run around all through the country and make sure that people are paying up. Now, if you think to yourself, what's my favorite podcast? What do I listen to all the time? Maybe it's Amy Poehler or Seth Meyers and Dana Carvey or Conan O'Brien or something like that. You might notice there's no music on those podcasts, and that's because they can't. It's illegal. So we can't do it either. But what's going to happen is everything that is non-musical on this Sunday morning show will pop up on the podcast every Monday on NewsTalkSTL.com. So just a little point of order there. What we do on the Saturday night show and what we'll do here is provide you with something that you can't get anywhere else. Now, on Saturday night, we're on from 6 until 9 o'clock on JC's Wayback Machine, and I play all of the great music that you know and that you love, but that doesn't get played on St. Louis radio anymore. I was talking with Tony Colombo over the weekend, and I said, it's like if you go to a Doobie Brothers concert, and as soon as the first few notes of Another Park, Another Sunday start being played, people jump to their feet, and they start clapping because they're like, oh, my God, I love that song. But what would you say if I told you that song has been played on St. Louis radio in probably 20 years? That's because these playlists are concocted by the corporate guys pretty much in Los Angeles and New York, and they just call up St. Louis and they go, okay, here's your 300 songs. And they're like, can't we play more than that? No! Here's your 300 songs. Don't make trouble. And so that's what you get. You get Cold as Ice every 36 hours. And all of those 300 songs every 36 hours. What we do on Saturday night is we basically start at 3:01. So you will hear, I just played Without You by the Doobie Brothers last night. Perfect example of what we do. And we pump in a lot of pop culture too. And so that's a great show. What we'll do here on Sunday morning is the same thing. Give you something you can't get anywhere else. In this particular case, can't get it anywhere else because it's in my head. And trust me, that's not a place you want to be generally. But all of these things that have happened to me, everything I've witnessed, whether it was on these film junkets, and I took over 400 of them in New York and California primarily, or backstage at concerts, or sitting with comedians backstage, or just any of that sort of stuff that you guys never get a chance to do, but that I did for over 4 decades. I kept track of all of those stories, and so we're just going to spew them out here for 2 hours every Sunday morning on JC's Sunday Showgram. That's it. As we will every week to kick off the show, it's something we call the Weekend Pickup. Because politics is sucking the life out of our news programs, there's all these bizarre, goofy, stupid stories that you're being deprived of. So that's how we start the big hubbub this week. Bad Bunny announced as the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show. I don't know if you know this or not, but the NFL does not pay. Doesn't matter how big the act is, how much money they've made, whether your last name is Swift, doesn't matter. NFL pays nothing. Basically, what they're saying is this show is going to go out to 1 billion people around the world. That's a billion with a B. What? You want money too? Then again, this is the outfit that pays their cheerleaders $14 an hour. That's it. That's not even enough to cover all the girls' hairspray and push-up bras. The little kid who was just a baby at the time that his parents said, sure, you need a picture of a baby floating in the water with its little dinky little thing sticking out for the cover of the Nirvana album Nevermind. That kid's 34 now. All he had to do was not tell anybody it was him, but he did, and it was a fatal mistake. And he tried to get money out of the Nirvana and Kurt Cobain trust by filing a lawsuit. A judge just dismissed that child pornography lawsuit. Spencer Eldon, that was the baby on the cover of the album. We hope that he has, shall we say, grown since then. Country star Morgan Wallen needs to be told that when somebody suggests that we rearrange the furniture in the apartment, that does not include taking a couch and throwing it out of the 10th floor window. Cops showed up, put him in cuffs. He denied the whole thing. Cops went to the videotape, and you can see him doing it, and he's still denying that he did it. Everybody remember the name Corey Lewandowski? In Donald Trump's first administration, Corey Lewandowski was one of those guys who was always on television supporting the president's positions. He disappeared for a couple of years. He is back now, allegedly messing Homeland Security cosplay director Kristi Noem. And he says ICE is going to show up at the Super Bowl and arrest all these illegal Puerto Ricans. Who's going to tell them Puerto Ricans are American citizens? Not me. The Cars are working on some new music with tapes that were left over in a studio from Rick Ocasek. He died in 2019. A woman in Kentucky accused of damaging a Little Caesars restaurant after she learned extra sauce wasn't free. Well, at least she had a good reason. Whitey Herzog's favorite show, The Flintstones, premiered on this date 65 years ago. Supremes released Love Child on this date in 68, and the theme from Shaft, He's a bad mother, shut your mouth. 1971 is when that came out, and Cheers premiered on NBC, ran for 11 seasons, starting on this date back in 1982. Breaking Bad, final episode on AMC 12 years ago. Birthdays this weekend: Mark Farner of Grand Funk, 77. Tiffany, 54. Kelly Ripa, 55. Lorraine Bracco, 71. Sting, 74. Don McLean, 80. Nev Campbell from Party of Five and the Scream movies, 52. Gwen Stefani, 56. Clive Owen, 61. Tommy Lee of Motley Crue, The Human Telephone Pole, is 63. Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac, 76. Dakota Johnson, I love when she goes on the late-night television talk shows wearing something that's supposed to be very sexy, very revealing, because I think to myself, I've already seen every square millimeter of your naked flesh. What is the point? Alicia Silverstone from Clueless, 49. Christoph Waltz, possibly one of the best 5 or 6 actors on the planet, 69. Susan Sarandon, I think I remember her from the SAG Awards. Good morning, everybody, 79. Travis Kelce seems to be doing okay, 36. Jesse Eisenberg, 42. Kate Winslet, 50. Karen Allen from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, and also Animal House, is 74. And Diddy got sentenced Friday afternoon to 4.1 years in a federal prison. That .1 was the judge adding insult to injury. How much you want to bet that sometime between now and the end of the holidays, you will be invited to something similar to a freak-off? If you do, let me know. I don't want to go. I just want to sit outside and watch people leaving leaving the next morning. Not a pretty sight. Okay, and that's how we start the show. It's called The Weekend Pickup. And on today's inaugural version of JC's Sunday Showgram, Nicole Kidman is in the news. We're going to tell you a story about her from back in the day. A cool story about the American Theater in downtown St. Louis. The time I walked in on John Waite of the Babies when he appeared to... Again, this was a complete shock and surprise to me. I had no idea, but I come walking around the corner, and he is in the throes of a romantic... Well, I better not tell you too much, but that story's coming up. What is it like to be at one of those legendary all-night Saturday Night Live after parties with the cast? Due to some sort of clerical error, I was allowed in one of these once, and it was quite a show. And coming up next, a stand-up comedian and actor who thought he was getting a big break when he was asked to open up for Frank Sinatra, but instead ended up with, let's just say, a level of embarrassment that I don't think he'll ever forget. It's JC's Sunday Showgram on 101.9, 94.1, and the News Talk STL app. We're coming back.
For a hole in your head or a whole new head, J.C. Corcoran, he's back.
Why are you going to work? It's Sunday.
It's a brand new show on News Talk STL. JC's Sunday Showgram.
Excuse me, sir, is this the Delta House?
Sure.
Come on in.
You know, I've been thinking about this. You know what makes people violent? I don't think it's television or films. I think it's alarm clocks because it wakes you up abruptly, you know, puts you in a bad mood. You're irritable, you're cranky. I think you should just wake up naturally with an alarm clock that has a human voice. You know, like, come on, buddy, time to get up, pal. You're looking good. You got the whole day ahead of you. Come on, out of bed. Come on, let's go. Up you go. Come on, buddy. Come on. Up you go now. Move it. Let's go. Move it. Move it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Then you hit the snooze alarm. Sorry, buddy. I didn't know what I was talking about then.
Most of us on waking in the morning know exactly where we are. The rooster or the alarm clock brings us out of sleep into the familiar sights, sounds, aromas of home and the comfort of a routine day ahead. Not so with our young friends. This will be a day like none they've ever spent, and they'll spend it in the Twilight Zone.
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Happy to see you again.
I'm going to say some bad words. You're just going to have to deal with it.
Oh, I like to talk.
I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? I'll write it and we'll do it live.
You're a freak with a microphone.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Surprised you never listened, Joe. There's 2 or 3 other talk shows around, but for my money, he's the best.
However, the radio still works. Funny as that may seem.
Okay, Ugly, I'll give you another 1,000 watts.
What's it look like? A radio? What? But so big, green with numbers, lots of knobs.
Now, I think we're ready for rehearsal.
So if you think long and hard enough, the name Larry Miller will probably ring a bell. Maybe the first time you saw him was as the Rodeo Drive shopkeeper that basically throws Julia Roberts' character out of the store there in the movie Pretty Woman. He was also in Waiting for Guffman. He was also in Best in Show. But the reason that Larry Miller got those gigs was because he was a tremendous stand-up comedian, and especially in the early days of Letterman. Letterman went on the air in 1982 on NBC, and Larry Miller was on every 3 or 4 months. And I swear to God, he went on and he killed every single time.
And men don't hear a word. Men do not hear a word. It's literally, the words don't go in the ear. There's an enzyme missing, and the words just keep... Right on. If you could just hear the way we hear. Our ears are different. Our ears are like shortwave radios that never quite come in. Our ears are just always a thing. We catch a phrase every so often. Like, cars in the shop. New curtains. Everything to us sounds like a train going by. Just don't forget dinner Saturday night. See, that's actually the way we hear. Hey, maybe that helps knowing that, huh? Men don't hear a word women say. And if the TV is on, good luck now. I mean, you might as well be talking to someone on life support, you know. And if it's a ball game,
see, so that's why Larry Miller was famous in the first place, and then that got him those movie roles. Now, we've had a guy on the air a million times by the name of Tom Dreesen. And for 14 years, Tom was the opening act for Frank Sinatra. But from time to time, just like anything, there might be a scheduling issue or something, some sort of commitment, maybe a family issue or something like that. And you got to go to the chairman of the board and say, Mr. Sinatra, I'm sorry, but I'm not available for the gig on the 18th because I have this family consideration. And apparently Frank was very gracious about it and said, no problem whatsoever. My daughter has a comedian who she's been selling me on for a long time. I think we're going to give him a shot. Don't you worry about a thing, Tom. Your gig is ready when you come back. Family is number one. Don't worry about a thing. Okay, so fine. Comedian Larry Miller gets the call. Here it is, your big break. You're going to open for Frank Sinatra. Now, backstage at a Sinatra concert is a little bit different than being backstage, for example, at a Van Halen concert. Very, very quiet, very, very dignified. A lot of the guys walking around who look like they could break a couple of your fingers just by looking at them. But other than that, a very relaxed environment. So Larry Miller is in his dressing room, and he's getting ready for the show, and we'll let him pick the story up there.
I was doing a benefit for a charity in Los Angeles, and apparently Nancy Sinatra was in the audience, and I guess she liked me, and she called her dad, and the next day I was renting a tux and flying to Vegas for the first time to work, and I opened for Frank Sinatra at the what was then the Bally Grand Hotel in Los, about 5 years ago, and 6 years ago, and 5.5. No, come to think of it, Larry, come on, Larry. And so it was just thrilling. My first time in Vegas, anyway. And although I could call it Vegas, even then, I think, first time. It's a great town.
Drop the laws.
First time in the Rat Pack. But really, first time in Las Vegas, and this gorgeous hotel. Really big dressing room with like a living room, bar, kitchen, and bedroom area.
Yeah, those really tight pants and pointy shoes, the whole thing. Yeah, skinny tie, yeah.
No, that's today. That's what I'm wearing now. And the point is, but I have no entourage, to say the least. I don't need one anyway at any point. Yeah. But even in years to come, I don't see that happening. But I didn't even have agents at that point, so I'm there all alone, and I hang up the rented tux, and I'm standing there. Yeah,
I can see Larry at the tux place on Sunset. I need this tux by 8. I'm leaving to go to Vegas. I'm opening for Sinatra tomorrow.
It's like, yeah.
Well, although actually,
I'm going to need it for another 2 days.
For whatever it's worth, my way is that it's sort of unseemly to say that sort of thing anyway. So when I rented the tux, they just say, some guy, 1 minute, pal. You wouldn't, it's just not quite right to say, gee, I'm kind of in a hurry because I have to shows in an hour. But anyway, I'm standing there, so finally, like a knucklehead, I said, well, might as well get dressed. And I take off my clothes, and I'm just there in my boxer shorts, and the pants are down at the ankles, and I have no shirt on. And there's a knock on the door, and I kind of lean my head into the living room area, and the door opens, and an older man just leans in with his finger and, crooks his finger at me, and and he disappears back around the door, and I said, what the heck I don't. So I did that, the classic guy thing, the Frankenstein walk with the pants down, into the living room. And just as I get in the living room,
Frankenstein walk.
Yeah, that kind of big shoe stutter step. And
there was a joke there,
right? And just as I get there, and I'm there with the pants down and the boxer shorts and no shirt, at that second, now around the door comes Sinatra with that tux of his that's always poured on. It looks just so... Right. No one has ever looked better in a tux than Sinatra. Yeah. And even at that point, he was 75, I guess, at that point, but still looking wonderful and big blue eyes, and he's got his hand held out and a big smile. And now, whatever you do, it's no good, because if you try to pull your pants up...
He's standing there with his hand out.
Unfortunate, right. He still has his hand out.
Right.
And if you're just standing there in your underwear... That's no good either. So you're twixt the rock and the hard place, but still you just held. I put my hand out, and he takes it, covers my hand with his. He just says, he's close up. He says, "Just want to tell you, Larry, we're very, very happy to have you here. My daughter Nancy says you're a very, very funny guy, and don't you worry. I know it's your first time here. You'll be great. Just have fun." And the little pinch, the cheek, the thing, the big wink, and he was so nice. And I'm so, just thank you, I'm very...
And your pants are on the floor.
And your pants are on the floor, and you go... And he hasn't said anything about this, by the way. He's just shaking my hand.
Because he's a pro, that's why.
Yeah, that's right. He's still just shaking my hand.
He's been there before. That's
I hadn't thought of that. Maybe he assumed there was someone else around the corner. There wasn't, by the way. There could have been. Don't kid yourself for a second. But the point is, though. No, wait. The point is, there is a point to this, and here it comes. As he finishes with the handshake, the wink, and it's so nice. And then he just said, "Okay, we'll see you later." And he just turns around and strolls out. And as he's leaving, without turning around, over his shoulder, he says, "Well, by the way, if that's in your act, I hope you close with it."
It's JC's Sunday Showgram on NewsTalkSTL.
And that app, very, very important these days, because we're going to put the show on podcast. Every Sunday morning we do the show, and then it'll go to podcast on Monday at NewsTalkSTL. Absolutely free app. All right, as we were saying, the big story from the entertainment world this week is the impending divorce between Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. I'm no relationship expert, but when a woman is married to a guy whose ass is smaller than hers and married to a guy who I think it takes longer for him to get ready to go out than it does for her. Again, I'm just spitballing here, but you never know. Incidentally, we got word just a little while ago that apparently there's trouble in paradise for Ellen DeGeneres. She has had a couple of pretty lousy years. Everybody just always assumed that she was like this nice, incredible, benevolent person, and then you find out, oh, no, man, that's a toxic environment on the set of her show. She goes off the air. She goes home. At least she's got Portia de Rossi waiting for... Looks like they might be on the outs. Portia allegedly needs space from Ellen because she feels suffocated and micromanaged. The words coming out of Hollywood. All right, but back to the Nicole Kidman thing. And for this, you need a little background because for, I don't know, like 19 years, I did these things called movie junkets. You probably know because you saw me on television all those years sitting there with movie stars. And it was very simple. You get off the air on Friday morning, finish your show at 10 o'clock, head straight to the airport, fly to either New York or Los Angeles, where deluxe accommodations were waiting for me and about 200 journalists from all over the world. Actually, the print journalists would get into town on Thursday. Then they would do all the interviews with all the stars of the movie on Friday. The local people like me would get on Friday, and then we would do all of our interviews with the movie stars on Saturday, and then the international press would come in on Saturday. They would do all their interviews on Sunday, and then everybody would go back to their respective countries, their respective cities, their respective television stations, and play those interviews from the movie. So, we'd be in these 4- and 5-star hotels in Brentwood, California, for example, right down the street from OJ's place. They give you $125 per diem. There was food in the hospitality suites. You got sometimes like a tour jacket or a tote bag or just some sort of little tchotchke to take back with you with the name of the movie on it. You go back to your hotel room, maybe catch a nap, and then hop on the bus at 6 o'clock, take everybody to the movie theater. They jam us all in there, show us the movie, and then the next morning you would get up and you'd have a schedule, and you would just follow that schedule. Here's your 8 minutes with this star, and then you go down the hall and you got 8 minutes with this person, and you would do that for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 different movie stars from the movie, depending on the film. Now, these things had to run on schedule because you've got 200 journalists from all over the world and they got flights to catch, and all of this stuff is all set up so that everybody can get in and get out on time. And trust me, there is no funny business, no fooling around, because if for some reason you're one of those people who likes to put up some sort of a stink or you have some sort of special needs, you just don't get invited back. So it behooves you to be on your best behavior and just follow the schedule, do the interviews, get in, get out, don't go over your allotted time. And by the way, if that sounds crazy, the person you're interviewing has been strapped into a chair. All the lighting and audio is all set. The wires are all stuffed away like in somebody's dress or overcoat or something like that. There's basically about 90 seconds available between interviews. There goes the guy from Philadelphia. In comes the guy from St. Louis. Hi, JC, St. Louis. Hi, how are you? In this case, we're talking about Nicole Kidman, who looked like about $200 million in unmarked bills. My God, did she look good. And we exchanged smiles and niceties. There's people buzzing around all over her, checking her makeup, checking her hair, the whole thing. Nicole maybe wanted a little sip of orange juice or something. She had a little bite of a muffin in between interviews, and everything's going to go just great. And as you saw in Wayne's World, they counted out. Is everybody ready? Yes, everybody's ready. Okay, here we go. In 5, 4, 3. You didn't say 2 or 1. You just don't. Okay? So they count us down. We're here with Nicole Kidman and blah, 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 blah. Nicole, in this movie, this and this and this happens. Just talk a little bit about that. And so she starts talking. And as she's talking, I am immediately distracted because I can see something stuck in her teeth. And I'm not talking about a seed or something. I'm talking about, well, in this case, I knew exactly what it was because she had just had a bite of a blueberry muffin in between interviews, and somehow a giant blueberry was stuck right between her two front teeth. So as she's talking, she's giving me her first answer. I'm trying to suppress laughter. And then finally, I just say, I'm sorry, guys, we have to stop. Well, I might as well have said, hey, guys, the hotel is on fire. And these guys came popping up and around from these rows of cameras and monitors and electronic equipment, looking at me like they were just going to murder me with their bare hands right there on the spot. Man, did I get dirty looks. And I'm trying not to laugh, and they're looking at me like, what the hell is so funny here, dude? And I'm like, Nicole, you have a giant blueberry stuck between your teeth. You know, she's very fair-skinned. Now her face turns beet red. One of her handlers comes running over, says, smile. She smiles, and sure enough, there's a blueberry the size of a basketball stuck between her teeth. And now all of Nicole Kidman's people are laughing hysterically. For some odd reason, the technicians still weren't. But, you know, I'm not going to let Nicole Kidman do an entire interview that's going to go back to St. Louis where she's got a giant blueberry stuck between her teeth. That wouldn't make me a very nice person. Nicole Kidman never did anything to me. So now they got like a pickaxe and they're trying to get this blueberry out from between her teeth. Her face is now slowly returning to its normal color. They count me down again and we do the interview. And that sort of stuff used to happen all the time. You know the Madonna story. I'll tell the whole thing some other time. But then, does everybody remember who Morgan Fairchild was? Okay, she dated Johnny Carson there for a while, and she was, your basic hot number. You go back to the 70s and 80s, and she was in lots of TV shows. She was on The Love Boat all the time. She did a couple of movies here and there, but maybe she's best known for the final scene of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. In the movie, they gave Pee-wee the job as the guy working the front desk, and then James Brolin and Morgan Fairchild do the scene right in front of that front desk. And, he's playing Pee-wee Herman, she's playing Dottie, and Pee-wee is standing behind the desk trying to look less obvious than it turned out to be. So there you go. You get Morgan Fairchild. So back in 1986, she's in town doing some show at the Muni. And I call up and I go, would Morgan Fairchild be interested in talking to the entertainment guy for the NBC affiliate? Yes, absolutely sure. I go tooling over to the Chase Park Plaza, one of my favorite places in St. Louis. And again, like a lot of these situations, I walk into the room, it's already set up. The cameras are set up. The lights are set up. She is almost locked into position in this lovely chair, very ornate looking. And she just extends her hand like, hello, nice to meet you. You can call me JC. This is going to run tomorrow night, blah, blah, blah. Again, we exchange niceties, and we sit down and we have a lovely interview. All right, now, the interview is over. But you got to remember, this is 1986. Back then, we didn't automatically take pictures of every single freaking thing that happened to us. For all the pictures that I'm able to post on the internet and on social media, you have no idea how many more there would have been had the culture been a little different back in the 70s and 80s, where we just took pictures of everything that happened. Back in those days, it was sort of unusual to ask for a picture, but I did, and she said, yeah, sure. Well, now she stands up, and when she stands up, I am struck by how tiny she is, and I mean really small. I'm not talking Mary Lou Retton or Trish Brown territory. It's more along the lines of diminutive. She's very, very thin, and she's wearing one of those clinging knit tops, and I quickly determined that she is not wearing a bra. This has me thinking, this is going to be a wonderful picture. So I stand up, I hand the camera to the cameraman, and he's nice enough to take the picture. I walk to the side of Morgan Fairchild. I put my arm around her, but forgetting how thin she was, when I put my arm around her, it went all the way around her, and my right hand ended up square on her right boob. And I mean a direct hit. Now, I pull back, as if to say, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. She looks at me like, yeah, I know that was an accident. We don't say anything, but I come back and I go, let's try that again. And I put my arm around her, and I'll be go to hell if it doesn't happen again. Right square on target. And at that point, I just figured, you know what? I'm going to pull my hand back. Please take the picture. And I just basically ran out of the hotel. And then one more quick junket story. Randy Krummenacher, lovely gal from St. Louis who was married to Bob Costas back in the day. And I'm on the air one day on the radio show yakking about the fact that I'll be flying out to California to interview Kevin Costner for a new movie called Waterworld. Now, this is a movie that was already being tremendously maligned by the Hollywood press because the people who had seen it said, oh my God, what a disaster this thing is. So there was a lot of pre-publicity for the movie, and it wasn't very good. But it was Kevin Costner. Worst thing that happens is I'm going to come back with an interview with Kevin Costner, right? And also Dennis Hopper, who is the director of the movie, I believe. So Randy hears me yakking about this and says, hey, I'm doing a big benefit thing for the Head First Foundation, people who have severe head injury. She's been involved in that for a long time. Do you think that you could take one of those little Field of Dreams Louisville sluggers that I know you have? Could you get him to autograph that for you, and then we can auction that off at the big gala for the Head First Foundation? And I was like, sure, I got about a half a dozen of these things. I'd be more than happy to donate one. These are these little, like, what are they, maybe 16-inch long replicas of a Major League Baseball bat, tiny little thing. I'll go ahead and I'll just throw that in the suitcase. That'll be great. Sure, be happy to do it. So sure enough, we see the movie on Friday night, and it's awful. It's pretty bad. And I get up the next morning and get myself all cleaned up, put my little suit on, and go to the hospitality suite. Mr. Corcoran, we're ready for you. Your first interview will be with Kevin Costner. Okay, great. I grab my little clipboard full of incisive questions and my little Louisville slugger bat with a Sharpie, and they escort me down the hall and sit me down in a little chair directly outside of the room in which Kevin Costner will be waiting for me as soon as he's finished with the interview that he's doing right now. Now, this was not the case very often, but every once in a while there was extra security added to the whole scene. And in fact, on this particular day, there was one of these security guards sitting on a chair directly across from me in the hallway, and he looks at me and says, you can't take that in there. I was like, what? He goes, that bat. I'm like, why not? He said, you could use it as a weapon. And I said, the movie wasn't that bad.
It's JC's Sunday Showgram on NewsTalkSTL. Like what you hear on JC's Sunday Showgram?
The numbers all go to 11.
Listen to all of it beginning tomorrow and every Monday on the podcast version of JC's Sunday Showgram.
You know that kind of music gets on my nerves, especially on Sunday.
On the free NewsTalkSTL app.
Welcome back to our very first edition of JC's Sunday Showgram here on News Talk STL. I had to get another one of those steroid shots with the cortisone, so my voice is all screwed up. I sound like Rex Davis here, but, you know, we forge ahead. So we used to do these things down at Jefferson Barracks called Rock and Cholesterol. And it was basically an opportunity to bring in some, third and fourth rate bands like Pure Prairie League, where, the only guy left from the original band was the guy who did the lights. But they sang Amy and everybody went away happy because everybody was drunk. We're all sitting there in a field on a Saturday night. And the rock and cholesterol part was there was lots of like bratwursts and hot dogs and stuff like that. Rock and cholesterol. We had one guy on the air at the time who would just say rock and cholesterol, which made no sense whatsoever, but he knew everything. What did we know, right? So one year we did pretty good, though. We got John Waite, and I love the Babies, and I also love John Waite's solo stuff. So for me, this was a pretty cool show. And as was the case back then, I was asked to MC the show, so I'm like, absolutely, I'm there. So I had run into John earlier in the evening. They had a big RV out and back, and he was using that for his dressing room as sort of his headquarters and stuff like that. And now it's starting to get very dark out, and especially backstage, there weren't any lights. We were outside. All the lights were focused from the front onto the front of the stage. There was nothing in back. It was pitch black back there. And when you're doing these things, you sort of get the sense that we're close. We're getting very, very close. And sure enough, the stage manager comes over to me and says, okay, JC, we're ready to bring out John Waite. I'm like, okay, where is he? And they're looking at me like, what do you mean, where is he? We thought you had him. My God, I'm just the pronouncer. I don't know where John Waite is. So now the show is getting ready to start. The band is actually in the wings, ready to come out. There's no John Waite. Now there's a frantic search to find out where he is. And everybody's looking around. Nobody can see anything. And again, backstage, it's just totally black back there. And you know what? To have a guy go on the PA and say, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, does anybody know where our featured act is right now? Because we can't find freaking John Waite. John, where the hell are you? You don't want to do that. That's bad form. So now I'm walking around back there in the darkness, and way off in the corner, I see what appears to be two people just, well, to say passionately would be the understatement of the century. They are practically, they're making out so heavily, they're practically undressing one another. And so you don't want to be a creeper. You don't want to go over there. But then I think to myself, what if that's John Waite? So I sort of, inch my way over there, and it's starting to look like maybe it's a guy dressed to go on stage for a rock and roll show. I get closer and closer and closer. Sure enough, that's got to be John Waite. And if you can stop sucking face with whoever this woman is long enough, maybe we could start the show. So I start getting a little closer, and I go, John? And sure enough, he turns around. He has this look on his face like you used to get when you were making out in the basement when you were 13 years old and your mom yells down, Johnny! John Waite looks at me and like, John, they're ready for you to start the show. He's like, oh, okay, good. And he, separates from this woman. He goes running past me. I go, don't run ahead of me. I got to introduce you. I introduce John Waite. He comes out on stage, thundering applause. But then the curiosity got the best of me. I was like, I want to see what this girl looks like. Who could this chick be? And it turned out to be country and Americana artist Alison Krauss. Like Alison Krauss in Union Station? And she sort of looks at me like, hey, whatever. Alison, of course, does a lot of work with T-Bone Burnett. But that night it was starting to look like she was going to get the J-Bone treatment, as in John Waite. John Waite going on stage going, can we turn the lights down a little bit? I got a little issue here. All right, we got lots more stories on the way. Another hour to go in our debut edition of JC's Sunday Showgram. Whether you're a fan of Saturday Night Live or not, I'm sure everybody by now has heard of the legendary stories of the all-night-long after-parties following the show. Show goes off the air at 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. By 2 o'clock, everybody is at the restaurant and bar. There's no such thing at these places as last call. If these people went home at 8 o'clock in the morning, that might have been cutting it short for some of them. So we're going to talk about that. And then people are always saying, oh, I love that show. Oh, man, I love that show. What about shows you can't stand? And especially, what about people who are on those shows that you just sort of had enough to hear with? That's another one of our topics coming up in hour number 2 of JC's Sunday Showgram here on 101.9, 94.1, and the free News Talk STL app. Stick around for hour 2. Skip Weber at the Weber Automotive Group.
All my employees are enjoying their job. We do stuff together. We treat people like a family. And that's just not on the sales floor. When you walk into the service department, the same thing. People are happy to be there. They're happy to wait on you. That's what we want more than anything. We want that atmosphere that I've noticed a couple times in my career when that wasn't going on. And sure enough, there was a problem somewhere. Right then, we nipped a problem in the bud. And so that atmosphere is super important to me.
Our 25s are going fast.
So if you're looking for that little bit higher rebate before the model year completely changes, this is the time. This is the time right now. And that goes for Fords, too. Ford and Chevy both. We used to have the big reveal in September, and everything switched over. Now it's kind of like a rolling reveal. But this is still the time when everybody's incentives to buy are a little bit higher on the leftover models.
Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive and 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. The Weber Automotive Group.
And now, real behind-the-scenes stories and tall tales from back in the day. From a guy who was there for all of it. It's JC's Sunday Showgram on NewsTalkSTL.
I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, okay?
Now, here's JC.
Okay, we made it through the first hour of the new show without getting fired, so we're going to go ahead and crank out the second hour. What do you think of that? So one of the greatest parts of this job is that I have been privy to all sorts of stuff, and I've been able to get access to all sorts of stuff that 99.999% of the rest of the population is never going to have an opportunity to do. And so we're going to talk about going to see Saturday Night Live, and not only going to see the show, but also to the rehearsal, but also to the after party. So let's just take it in chronological order. And the bad news is, if you're thinking, well, we're going to New York, let's drop in and see Lorne at Saturday Night Live. And the truth of the matter is, you pretty much have to know somebody to be able to get in. There's lines of people out in front that are hoping to get in, but I don't think many of them make it. And as you're sitting there waiting for the show to begin, you get into little conversations, and one of them frequently is, how did you get your tickets? And in almost every case I can remember is because somebody knew somebody. Now, in this particular case, the first time I went to see Saturday Night Live, we had a sort of a mutual friend. My first wife was the assistant to Tom Brokaw. He had a desk directly next to Tom Brokaw's desk, and he sat there. Yes, Tom, more coffee? Yes, Tom, I'll go get those scripts. Yes, Tom, your dry cleaning should be ready in about 2 hours. Now, the truth of the matter is, he had more to do than that, but we always would tease him about that. But we didn't tease him when he said, yeah, if you come to town, I'll get you tickets to see Saturday Night Live. And so he did. And first thing you need to know is that there's 2 shows every Saturday night when they're working. They take an awful lot of days off, a lot of Saturdays where they don't do a show. But in the instances where they do a show, you have a show at 8 o'clock. That is the rehearsal. And it contains, I'd say, about maybe an extra 30 to 40 minutes of material that they know isn't going to be able to make the show, but they're trying stuff out. And you need to try it out in front of a live audience to see whether it's going to work. But other than that, it's sort of like watching a real episode of Saturday Night Live, but you could also tell it's a little ragged, and there's writers running around and producers, and, they're checking to see if some of the stuff they have written and are getting ready to perform on the show at 11:30 Eastern Time, they need to know if this stuff is going to work. Same thing with Weekend Update. There have been times where I've gone to the rehearsal, and I've been there 4 times, twice for the rehearsal, twice for the actual show. And I'll get to more of that later. But you go in there and you sit down and they start doing the show, and it's like, oh, this is just like Saturday Night Live. But then you realize, no, this is a little different. Now, they're also videotaping this. And one of the reasons why is because when they go live at 11:30, if there's some sort of a technical snafu, or a camera is late on a cut, or they just have some sort of production issue, a lot of times what they will do is they will grab just a real short snippet from the 8 o'clock rehearsal and plug it in. I still remember back in the early 90s, John Goodman was the host of the show one night, and he was doing the monologue, and he was doing this thing where he was supposed to be conversing with members of the crowd, and the tape went down. And so now John is standing there, and he asks a question to somebody in the crowd, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. And John is just standing there on stage with his new you-know-what flapping in the wind, and they finally tried to slap something together to get him out of it. But then when you watched the show in reruns, everything went perfectly smooth. That's because they grabbed a piece of tape from the rehearsal at 8 o'clock, and then they inserted it into the show that went into syndication. But I digress. So anyhow, at 8 o'clock, they do an entire show about 2 hours long. Saturday Night Live is 90 minutes, so obviously some of the stuff ain't going to make it. And it's actually sort of fun to go to the rehearsal, then go back to your hotel and see all the things that they changed, all the jokes that they rewrote, all the stuff that they purged from the show, all the stuff that, is different. Sometimes even the sequence of events, you're like, oh, wait a minute. When I saw the rehearsal a couple of hours ago, that bit was the second sketch they did in the show, and now it's way at the end of the show. So it's sort of funny because what happens is when the rehearsal is over at about 10 o'clock Eastern time, the entire staff, all the cast players, everybody, they pile into Lorne Michaels' office, and they all sit on the floor, and they discuss what worked and what didn't. They got a big chalkboard there, and they decide how the show is going to be, as they say, blocked. And you're going to put this here and put this there, and then we're taking this out. This didn't make it. Sorry, Bobby, we're not going to be able to do that sketch, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the show. And as Lorne Michaels has said on numerous occasions, Saturday Night Live does not go on the air Saturday nights at 11:30 because they're ready. They go on at 11:30 because the clock says it's 11:30. And you take what you have and you go with it and you wish for the best. You're going to hear Lorne Michaels say something about that here in just a couple of seconds as we have something from the archives I think you'll enjoy. So anyhow, they do the entire rehearsal, and then they whoosh that entire audience. I think it's like 288 people. It's not that big a studio, and they get everybody out. And as the audience from the rehearsal is leaving, you're passing the people who are in line, who are waiting to get into the real show at 11:30. Like I said, I've been to the rehearsal a couple of times, been to the show a couple of times. Now, the last time I was there was quite a few years ago. It was like 20 years ago. And I still remember that the guest that night was Kate Hudson. And I think she just might have been coming off of the movie Almost Famous. I'd have to look that up. But anyhow, she comes out, and there's an electric feeling. I mean, when you're sitting there in an audience in New York City in this studio, and they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and that show goes on the air, there is just an absolute supercharged feeling in that studio, because you're like, wow, this is like the coolest thing ever. There's about 300 people in here that are going to see this show live. Everybody else is going to be watching it on TV, but I'm here. So, then they do the show. They do the curtain call at the end, and then there's sort of a mad scramble, because now it's 1 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, and in this particular case, the same guy, Tom Brokaw's assistant, the same guy who got us the tickets to get in to see the show, also arranged for us to go to the cast party, the after show. And it was a restaurant called Carmine's on the Upper West Side, if I recall correctly. And you come up to the front door, and there's a goon standing there wondering who the hell you think you are. And you go, my name's on the list. What is it? And they look at you like, I don't know who you are, how you got in here. I've never seen you before, but your name's on the list. Thanks very much. Have a nice time. You come walking in. I come walking in. It's a big restaurant, bar, and the whole thing. And the first thing I see is in a booth, Marcy Klein, Calvin Klein's daughter, and one of the production assistants on the show. Oh, my God, she must have been there 40 years. She was there almost from the beginning. She was just a kid at the time. And she was a production assistant, and I come walking in, and the first thing I see is Phil Hartman, and he's sitting in the booth across from Marcy Klein, and his forehead is just on the table. I don't know if he was passed out or just exhausted or tired or what. All I know is his face was on the was on the table. And nobody seemed to have any sort of excessive reaction about it. So I just keep walking, The next thing I see is out on the dance floor. Like I said, there's a very nice restaurant, bar, place, real classy place. But they did have a stage and then an area, a little dance floor in front of the stage. And I come walking in and out of the corner of my eye and look. And now Lorne Michaels is not a huge guy. He's a small guy. Chris Farley, as you know, was not a small man. And I must have walked in the middle of something, obviously, because I come walking in, and out on the dance floor, there is Chris Farley at probably close to 400 pounds, and he is riding the back of Lorne Michaels. And Lorne, who is not the loosest guy, I guess you'd say, pretty serious dude, he's laughing and at the same time got this look on his face like, this guy's going to crush me alive. And Farley was just laughing hysterically, almost with that borderline devilish laugh where you're wondering, what the hell is he going to do next? So anyhow, that came and that passed, and I'm sort of standing around, and I come around a corner, and I come face to face with Dana Carvey, and Dana Carvey gets this frozen look on his face, and he goes, in his Garth Algar voice, he says, "You're my favorite DJ." This was because just a couple of months prior, we had Dana Carvey in the studio and on the show for like 2 hours. We really got to know one another. He couldn't remember my name, but he definitely knew who I was. He recognized me immediately. I reintroduced myself. We had a very nice talk about stuff. And at that point, ambling over is Mr. Mike Myers. And Mike Myers comes walking over as if to say, "Dana, who are these people you're talking to? I've never seen them before." And he introduces Mike Myers to me, and we immediately began talking about hockey. And it was because it was coming up on, I don't know, some sort of golden anniversary of the National Hockey League, and the league had sent letters of request to, in some cases, the most famous sports fan, particularly hockey, somebody associated with that hockey franchise like the Boston Bruins or the Montreal Canadiens or whatever, who is considered to be the celebrity from your town who is also a big hockey fan. And the St. Louis Blues had given me a letter and asked me to try to see if I could get it to John Goodman, which I did. He ended up having to decline. And the Chicago Blackhawks had sent the same request to Mike Myers to be their representative for this big, golden anniversary. And he said, "Oh, yeah, they did contact me, but I had to say no because I'm on deadline. I got this script that's due in just a couple of weeks, and I got to finish it. And I'm doing the show here every week, so I've got a lot of work." Well, that movie script that he was referring to turned out to be a little thing called Wayne's World. But he was very nice. Just could not have been nicer. And, I'm nobody. I'm not anybody associated with the show or NBC or anything like that. I'm just some dude who figured out some way to finagle my way into a Saturday Night Live cast party. So we had a real nice conversation. I went around, talked to a couple of the other people. I don't know where Farley ended up. I didn't see him the rest of the night. But I can only convey to you the feeling of excitement. There is just it's almost like if you've ever been to a Game 7, like, the Cardinals Game 7 of the World Series or something like that. I would say it's a little bit like that, where you come walking in and you can just feel the energy. I get goosebumps right now just sort of thinking about this. And that's exactly what the feel is. It's like I'm about to witness something that, like I said earlier, 99.9999% of the rest of the population is never going to have the opportunity to witness, and I am freaking here. Off in the corners of the place, there appeared to be some, hookups going on. Some of the people I recognized, some of the people I didn't. I made it to about 5 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 a.m., it did not appear as though the party was even beginning to thin out. But, my alarm during those days used to go off at 4:15 Central Time. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm a pretty tired little boy. So the show is in its 51st year, and Lorne Michaels has been there producing for all but 2 years. I think it was, 81 and 82. He was gone because the show was falling apart, and they brought in Woody Allen's friend to try to pump some life into it, and she failed miserably. And after 2 years, they finally brought back Lorne Michaels, and as they say, the rest is history. But on the 15th anniversary, and you got to go way back because it's obviously 1990. The show went on the air in 1975. So in 1990, they're celebrating the 15th year of SNL, which at that time was a huge deal. 15 years. Oh, my God. And we got into a conversation with Lorne Michaels, who was flanked by Dennis Miller. And we got talking about some particular aspects of the show.
Always there to tell you about a new disease, a car accident or killer bees. Who beg her to spare you, Debbie, please. But you can't stop Debbie Downer.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
But I think what I'm most known for is my wiener.
I gotta have more cowbell.
Well, isn't that special?
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Man, talk about a guy who never does interviews. The overlord of Saturday Night Live, Lorne Michaels. The show is now in its 51st year.
Guys, when you go back to the first 2 seasons of Saturday Night Live, I remember that I was living in the Detroit area, and the NBC affiliate wasn't even carrying the show back then.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, when you think back to those early days, those first couple of seasons, what was the problem with these guys?
Well, I think when we first came on, there was a tremendous fear because we were going live on the first show, and since no one really knew what we were going to do, not so much out of any kind of deceit, but because we didn't know what we were going to be doing. We kept changing it much the way we will this Sunday till the very last moment. And so a lot of affiliates, I think, perhaps wisely, waited to see. Detroit is notoriously patient, so they waited 2 or 3 years before they put us on the air.
They didn't have the show for 2 years?
They didn't have the show for 2 years, but they're now up to 1987.
Up to speed.
Yeah, and so there were a lot of places that didn't carry us, and it was odd who did carry us. I mean, one of the great things about doing the show in the early days was that we'd be up on the 17th floor in this building at Rockefeller Center, and we pretty much would hear from people only from mail because other than people we'd run into in our own lives, we didn't know really who was watching the show. And then you'd find out that we were doing like this is a little industry talk, but we were doing like a 62 share in San Antonio, Texas, and you'd go, why there? Why do they like us more than any other place in the country?
Not a whole hell of a lot going on in San Antonio on Saturday night in addition to that.
It might well have been that, but I mean, there were a lot of other places where there's not that much going on. What I'm getting at is that it always seemed random to us. Chicago has always been an enormous audience for us, as has Washington. I think Washington, and Dennis probably testify to this, because we tend to mention a lot of people from Washington each week on the show and Weekend Update. After 15 years on the air, I think people pretty much know what to expect from us on a Saturday night.
How sheepish do these people in Detroit feel, though, to miss the purest demographic hit in the history of television for 2 seasons?
Actually,
I mean, they're the ones kicking themselves.
Yeah, actually what happened was Channel 50, at the time the Kaiser station, picked it up on an independent basis and just picked up that show alone. It was pretty remarkable.
Believe me, I think some heads probably rolled at the local Detroit affiliate about missing that boat for a couple of years.
And I'll tell you something, because of the night shift there, people do stay up late in Detroit. I know that from personal experience.
Lorne, you've always been given credit for creating the show and steering it and all that, but what have you been wrong about?
Now that's a unique question.
Lots of things. The other day somebody asked me if I had any regrets, and I thought, how can you get to be 44 and not have any regrets? But every week between dress and air, I never know whether I made the right decisions or not. What you finally begin to accept is that, like the baseball season, that you win some and you lose some, and you just hope that over a season it averages out. I felt very badly about the 85-86 season. There were 2 people in that cast in particular, most notably Joan Cusack and Robert Downey Jr., that I felt had remarkable talent, and their success in the movie business in the last 4 years has sort of borne that out, that somehow we couldn't connect to or make work on the show in a way that was worthwhile for both them and us. There have been hosts I felt I've let down. There was once a Dick Cavett show that we did in January of 1976, in which for a full 90 minutes, there was not a sound in the studio except for the breathing of the audience and the occasional sound from a page who would asked if they were still necessary for them to be there. There have been nights in which you wonder why you do the job. It's one of those situations in which you're working with people who are under a deadline, and there's a lot of pressure, and sometimes people behave badly. Sometimes things are more volatile than they might be in a sort of normal situation. But I love doing the show, and I'm happy that I'm still doing it. Thanks, you, JC. See ya.
It's JC's Sunday Showgram on NewsTalkSTL.
All here on a Sunday morning. It's JC's Sunday Morning Showgram, and it's our very first episode. There'll be a little music here and there, but mostly it's me telling stories from back in the day. And from time to time, we'll also talk a little bit about what's going on now. Seems like a logical mix. And we'll be, making little adjustments and tweaking things along the way. But for right now, first episode, not bad. And the guy who is largely responsible for this show, even being on the air, is our buddy Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet with 3 locations. Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. The Weber Automotive Group includes a Ford dealership over in Metro East. And we say hi to Skip Weber. We frequently talk about favorite things that we have, favorite guitarists, favorite kinds of music, everything like that. We don't spend enough time talking about the things we can't stand, the things we can't stand. Now, whether it's movie, and I'm going to talk about politicians, no politicians. I'm talking about entertainers, musicians, comedians, actors, actresses, just people in the public eye. Now, there's a couple that I have, and don't ask me to explain this other than the fact that I just absolutely become physically ill when I see John Leguizamo. I don't know what it is. It might have had something to do with that second movie, that thing where they do in the snow. It was those Ice Age movies. He always had a little lozenge in his mouth when he would talk. So when he would talk like this, and it used to just make me physically ill. So I'll start there. How about somebody for you? Somebody when the person comes on the TV, you're like, I gotta go.
There's a few that I think are immensely overrated, and I just don't see the attraction to them. And there's 3 comedians, and I like some of the movies that they're in, but I still don't necessarily see the attraction. That is Jim Carrey, Chevy Chase, and Will Ferrell. I like Elf. I like Fletch. I like Caddyshack, but not because of him. I don't get it. I don't get why people think that they're the funniest people on TV or on movies. I never have felt that.
Well, I just saw Jim Carrey in Liar, Liar. It was running on cable about 10 days ago, and I watched it, and he was doing things. The physical humor that he was doing was so incredible. I remember thinking to myself, this is one of the finest comedic performances I've ever seen. They're going to be showing this to film students 100 years from now. Chevy Chase has been just winking at the camera for 50 years, still trying to get away with that same act, and I'm with you. And who was the third one?
Will Ferrell. I mean, I like Anchorman, but I really think that the funniest bits from Anchorman were other people like Steve Carell and, and the sportscaster guy. I don't know. And I have never seen Liar, Liar. I do appreciate Jim Carrey's physical comedy, but the stuff that everybody loves, like Dumb and Dumber and the Ace Ventura.
No.
I mean, I just look I go, guys, I don't get it. And I think I have a really good sense of humor. I love comedy stuff. They just fall flat.
Well, I got to tell you one other thing. I wasn't even planning on talking about this. Satellite radio just started this Taylor Swift channel. I've spent the last 2 days in the car listening nonstop to Taylor Swift. I think she's a lovely woman. I think she seems to be really on the right side of everything. She is remarkable to her people, handing out cash like crazy. She seems to be a brilliant businesswoman, but I do not get the music. I just don't get it. There's nothing there for me. Maybe there's not supposed to be.
I really liked her first 2 albums. My daughter was the age of the right Swiftie age when they came out. I liked it because we listen to a lot of country music. I'm mainly a rock guy, okay? But my wife and I met in Texas. We got our countryside, and she has always written her own songs and played guitar along and can play the music. And I love that about the first 2 albums. But the more famous she got, the less I like the stuff she was writing. So the current stuff, I don't like it at all.
I think somebody needs to tell Morgan Wallen when they say, let's rearrange the furniture, it does not include taking a couch and throwing it out of a 10th floor window.
Exactly.
He keeps denying it, Skip, and they've got the video of him throwing the thing off the deck.
Yeah.
Put us in charge of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Skip and I will fix the world. All right.
Exactly.
We are officially into the month of October right now, and things start shifting a little bit in terms of car buying. And again, I have vivid memories of being with my dad out on a car lot. We could never afford new cars, so we were always buying a used car. And it was Chicago, and you're like, the car's not going to make it through the winter. And now you're standing outside, and it's about 14 degrees, and the wind is blowing, the snow's flying around, and you're just freezing to death out there. And people have it so much easier now, and one of the ways that it is easier is people can check out everything that they might be interested on the Weber Chevrolet website.
Exactly. If you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle, you can come to our website and you can find just about any brand with just about any, not, maybe not on the same store, but with our 4 stores, we got them all across there. There's a lot of corporate websites, like you can go to Honda, Toyota, and Chevy and compare, the Equinox versus the RAV4 versus the CRV and decide which one, the stats are better and see videos and all that. And I think that's good, but I still think the people that end up the most confident in their purchase still come drive them all. That's very few and far between. Most people have got at least the brand. A lot of people come in and they say, I want this stock number, and they change because they see a different color, or they find out this doesn't have this certain option, but this one does. Oh, let's go to this one. Or, hey, look, we've got a rebate on this package. You can save $1,500 more if you do this, and all you do is change this option. Those things happen, but the people don't change from a Chevy to a Ford on the fly at that point. But like I said, I still think that there are people that will go drive each of them and compare them. And even though they've done a lot of research, they still use that to make up their mind. But that used to be the way. We used to have the people come in and we would educate ourselves on the other brands and what they were and what the stats were. Now we don't. Nobody knows. I mean, my guys may know a little bit of it, but it's not because the customers are asking. That's for sure.
Well, watch Liar, Liar. Skip Weber with 3 locations, Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive and 270 online, WeberChevrolet.com, the Weber Automotive Group, including the Ford dealership in Illinois, where I know you got lots of trucks and vans and delivery vehicles and stuff like that people can check out. Skip, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks, JC.
It's JC's Sunday Showgram on News Talk STL.
Hi, I need to speak to JC. I've been trying to talk to him since before the election.
Yeah, he's a big pain in the butt. Can I just give him a message?
Just tell him I think he's an arrogant jackass. I'll tell you the reason why.
All right. Just so you know, by the way, he drives me crazy, too. I hate him.
Well, he made the comment that he said, who do these religious people think they are? When they were going to vote against the stem cell. Who do they think they are? And I thought, what an arrogant jackass.
Right. I agree. He's always doing stuff like that.
And who are you? Are you JC?
Yeah.
I figured you might be.
Are you an electrician?
You big dummy.
Oh, the adoring fans. I just love them. All right, we were talking about this a little while ago. This is a very exciting time of the year for me because I love October baseball, and I follow 2 teams. I follow the Cubs and the Cardinals, and it drives both fan base is insane because the Cardinal fans hated that I like the Cubs, and the Cub fans hated that I like the Cardinals. But you know what? I grew up in Chicago. That was my team right up until I was about 20 years old. But then I moved to St. Louis 42 years later. How can you not become a Cardinal fan? But what sort of baseball fan would you be? What sort of baseball fan would you be if you abandoned the team that you were born and raised on just because you moved? And I always try to turn it around on people when they give me crap about this because I say, okay, born and raised Cardinal fan, right? Yes, since the day I was born, I've loved the Cardinals. Okay, great. Now you grow up, you get a job, and you're doing well, and your boss comes to you one day and says, we need you to run our field office in San Francisco. You'll leave in 2 weeks. So now all of a sudden you're up and you're going. And this This is not a far-fetched scenario either. This happens all the time, okay, where people get transferred. All right, now all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's like, geez, I'm in San Francisco. And so you get the MLB package so that you can continue to watch the Cardinal games. But as time goes on, the San Francisco Giants thing is sort of everywhere, and you see all the hats and the logos, and you see people going in and out of the ballpark looking very, very happy. And you know the ballpark is one of the most beautiful places, although I have an issue with that because people are trying to override Wrigley Field in the last couple of years and try to say that the Giants ballpark out in the Bay Area is the most beautiful ballpark. Well, it depends. Are you taking in consideration all the things that are on the outskirts of the ballpark? Or are you just talking about the ballpark itself? Because in San Francisco, it's a nice ballpark and everything, but if you go into the upper deck and now you can see the entire bay, you see all the water, all that sort of stuff, oh my God, it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. However, you got a Wrigley Field, and if you're sitting inside the ballpark, I don't think there's any question that it's the most beautiful ballpark for baseball in all of the MLB. So I don't buy this business. I do not buy the idea that part of the ballpark is the stuff that's not a part of the ballpark. But, you know, I digress. And you really can't count on the Cardinals anymore to make the playoffs. We're in such a weird period right now. The Cubs are, you know, playing some pretty decent baseball. This series between the Brewers and the Cubs is just going to be epic. But I digress. There's a point to this whole thing. The idea being that after a couple of years, that San Francisco Giants thing would seep into your being. And, you know, you'd start going to some games, and then maybe you'd buy a jersey or a hat. And the next thing you know, you're splitting your allegiance between your hometown team, the St. Louis Cardinals, but the place where you're living, the San Francisco Giants. It's gonna happen. The biggest problem I have at this time of year, I want to watch the game, and it's like, where is it? I've gone through my entire menu of stations. I still can't find the friggin' game.
Hey, fans. This year, ALDS and NLDS MLB games were broadcast on TBS. When ALDS and NLDS MLB games overlapped on TBS, one ALDS or NLDS MLB game was broadcast on TNT until the conclusion of the ALDS or NLDS MLB game on TBS, in which case the ALDS or NLDS MLB game on TNT could return back to TBS. If ALCS and NLCS MLB games on Fox overlap, one ALCS or NLCS MLB game will air on Telemundo. Thanks for watching MLB.
Yeah, well, the reason that's funny is because it's true. Honey, I can't find the game. Have you tried Animal Planet? Boy, when you're a kid, you're young in broadcasting, and those first couple of times that you are admitted to the clubhouse, you know, the guys are actually, you know, you're seeing their lockers. They're coming in and out of the showers, and it is human nature. And you are warned ahead of time. It's like, this your first time in a clubhouse? Yeah. Keep your eyes up. Keep your eyes up. You get guys walking out of the shower completely stark naked, and I believe it is human nature for a civilian, a reporter like me, like anybody new in the business. I'm talking about when I was a kid, and you come walking in there and you're standing there, and here comes your favorite player that you have seen in uniform your entire life, and all of a sudden there's the guy with his wang hanging out. You can't help but have a glance, but you got to get that out of your system right away, because you can tell from the looks on their faces, the guys do not like it if your eyes are pointed down. And then the other thing I noticed was the older ball players look so much different than the young guys. The young guys are just, you know, lean muscle and just perfect athletic physiques. And then around the corner comes Larry Walker, and he looked like my dad coming out of the shower. It's amazing how fast it all happens. It's all I can say. And because I have great admiration for the guy, I'm not going to say who it is, but there was a guy associated with Cardinal management. So obviously we're talking about a coach here. And I'd heard for years people refer to him as Soup Can. Like, what the hell sort of nickname is Soup Can? And then you see him coming out of the shower, and it's very, very clear as to why he had that nickname, and I will leave the rest of that up to your imagination. But I'll tell you this true story, as a lot of you know, from 1958 to 1964. My uncle was a pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. He was a reliever by the name of Don Elston. He came up in the organization with the Cubs back in 1953. They sent him to the Brooklyn Dodgers. I have a baseball. I should just grab this. Let me grab this real quick. I should probably have this in a bank vault somewhere, but it's just so nice to have on display when somebody comes over to be able to show this. But this is a 1957 autographed team baseball from the Brooklyn Dodgers. Listen to the names on here: Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Carl Erskine, Roger Craig, Carl Furillo, Don Zimmer, Pee Wee Reese, Walter Alston, Joe Pignatano, Don Newcomb, and, of course, my uncle, Don Elston. So he gave me that ball. My uncle gave me that ball, and I've had it ever since. I can't even imagine what it must be worth. I used to go to his house in Winnetka, which is basically the Ladue of the Chicagoland area. I go in there, and they have pictures of Frank Sinatra and Doris Day, selfies back in the day, way before selfies were a thing, but you'd get a photograph with somebody. I was just a kid. I mean, this is 58 to 64, so I was just, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So the memories are a little bit fuzzy in certain instances, but the reason I bring all of this up is because I think it was about 10 days ago was the anniversary of this happening. This is just such a great story. So like I said, my uncle was a relief pitcher, and this is 1959. So the Cubs are playing the San Francisco Giants, and they got this guy in the ninth inning, and he gets on first base, and it's a 1-run lead that the Cubs are trying to protect, and they bring in my uncle, Don Elston, as the relief pitcher with this man on first. Here's Elston into the stretch, and he throws over to first. Runner is back safely. Throws over again. A third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, 6, 7, 8. He hasn't even thrown a pitch to the plate yet. The batter's standing there like, are we ever going to do this? But my uncle's looking over there at first base going, I don't want this guy getting to second. He gets to second. He's in scoring position. They can tie this game up. We could end up losing. I'm going to make sure that this guy isn't going anywhere. So he throws over to first base 9 consecutive times. And I'll be a son of a gun if on the 10th pickoff attempt, he nails the guy. That's the third out. Cubs are ahead by a run. Game is over. Cubs win. Giants lose. The guy, by the way, that he picked off at first base, perhaps you've heard his name, Willie Mays. True story. Here on 101.9, 94.1, and the NewsTalkSTL app. Now, good news is if you missed any of the show today, starting tomorrow morning on that free app, NewsTalkSTL, you're going to be able to hear all the talk portions of this morning's show. And we'll be here every Sunday morning now from 7 to 9. So whether you're up early on a Sunday morning or you prefer the podcast, we got you covered either way. A big thanks to our buddy Skip Weber at Weber Chevrolet and the Weber Automotive Group. Next week, I think we're going to delve into the half a dozen or so conversations I had with Robin Williams. And don't forget, we're here on Saturday nights too, playing mostly music on JC's Wayback Machine. That's a lot of fun, too. I've become your weekend warrior. I'm JC. Have a great remainder of your weekend. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.
We're on a mission from God.